So like Navis was mentioning, I'm also one of the director here in FDPPI. So those who are new to this FDPPI forum, we are the first organization floated here in India to promote privacy and data protection initiative in India. As a part of this initiative, primarily our objective is to promote privacy and the protection mechanisms, and to develop the community knowledge, efficient and ethical data protection professionals who are part of this, and also to enhance the value and worth of the profession of data professionals who are directly or indirectly engaged in this activity. As a part of this larger objective, we have initiated data protection certifications too, which also deals about the local law and also global laws. So as a next set of activity, we have taken up this to set up some kind of a standard, for India. I mean, overall Indian data protection as an arena. We have picked up to set up some sort of standard as a feedback to the industry. As a part of this initiative, this is just a kind of a starting point for us to understand and discuss from the various professionals what all would be the proposed or probable the production or implementation standards we can have it as a part of the organizational data protection policy and the programs. So that's about the today's program. As a part of agenda, today we have Navi sir and also Ramesh Venkatraman and also Anand Putnam, who are going to be discussing about the various standards and the policies that could be employed in our various privacy compliance programs. So that's the overall agenda here today. Over to you, sir. Please go ahead, start now.
Thank you. I will just share my PPT.
Yeah.
Okay, friends. So basically, we are trying to introduce the PDPA implementation standard. Anand, you can admit people if you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So this PDPA implementation standard is what we are going to discuss. We would like, after we make our presentation, have a discussion where you can also put in your thoughts. The idea of having a standard is that now FDPPI has already created the certified data protection professionals as a category of people, which we started with the local law, and now we are moving on to the global law, where about 51 professionals have already been certified for Module I, and some more are in the pipeline. We expect another 50 professionals will be getting ready for Module G. So by the time we complete the first Module G, we'll be having nearly 100 professionals who are in some way been especially inducted into the field of privacy and data protection. And now there is, of course, the next level requirement that there has to be tools for implementing the PDPA compliance. We don't know when PDPA will become effective, and even after it becomes effective, there will be some time for implementation. But however, we need to get ourselves prepared, and also we need to prepare the other professionals for which there is a time requirement. So we are starting now by presenting this particular implementation framework, which is basically designed for implementing the PDPA of India. We have called this Personal Data Protection Standard of India. Of course, a lot of people will be raising their eyebrows because we are calling it a Standard of India. But since there is no other specific personal data protection framework for PDPA as proposed, you can call it as PDPP bill or whatever is that. Now, this being the first attempt, we would like this to be developed as a standard. And as we go along, we will be refining it when the law becomes effective, and when the Data Protection Authority will be providing more guidelines. But since what has happened now is internationally, if you see, when GDPR came, there was only the ISMS standard which was available. DS 10012 was there, but subsequently ISO 27701 came much later to provide a sort of a framework for compliance of GDPR. We don't want to wait for PDPA to come and another 2 years to lapse before the standard comes. So that's why we are trying to bring this standard. This will be a framework which will be geared towards implementing PDPA, but it would be extendable to other data protection laws like GDPR, CCPA, or any other law, because globally, if you are observing, there is an increasing complexity with every country coming up with their own data protection law, and somebody like Dubai, UAE will have one law, then DIFC will have another law. So there is a lot of proliferation of data protection laws. Though the general principles are similar, there will be finer details which differ from one law to another law. And from the compliance point of view, even if they differ small and minor, we cannot ignore that. And whoever is in charge of the compliance will have to look at even those minor differences. Therefore, we will have the framework with certain, you can say, the general template for which is applicable to all data protection laws, and implementation specifications which will be specific to GDPR or CCPA or any specific law. Therefore, we will be able to provide one document for the basic compliance extendable to multiple other laws. In a way, say ISO has a system of coming up with a series of various standards, and maybe we will start with a certain series of PDPSI, PDPA, PDPSI, GDPR, and so on. The difference is that this will be a techno-legal compliance standard, whereas ISO started as a technical compliance standard, and thereafter they are trying to actually modify the ISO 27001 with the 27701 and try to adopt the technical model to the techno-legal model. Whereas what we are trying to do is to introduce a techno-legal model straight away, and the technical aspects of the techno-legal compliance will be subsumed within this techno-legal compliance standard. So the suggested model of presentation is that there will be a set of general standards, then there will be a set of suggested implementation specifications. These implementation specifications would have the flexibility for being fine-tuned by the implementing auditor or the company. And if a company feels that the implementation specification as provided in the guideline is not exactly suitable for its level of operation or whatever risk it has got, we will expect that they will have a slight modified specification.
Framework which can be used for implementing.
Variance statement between what is available as the standard specification guideline and what the company has adopted in its charter. That difference we would like the organization to justify through a various statement. Otherwise, there will be flexibility as far as the implementation of the specifications are concerned. Now, as far as the standards are concerned, we are looking at 6 top-level standards, call it as layer 1, the requirements, and then 5 second-level kind of key domains on which we have to work on. So totally around 11 basic standards are what are being looked at. just to explain what these perhaps would mean, is that, for example, if we say define implementation responsibility, we would expect that the organization will have an apex body with a representation directly from the board, and preferably an independent director to be the chairperson of this apex committee. DPO, if it is there, data protection officer, will obviously be the most important member of this apex committee. He will be like the secretary, but there will be representations from the business, IT, IS, HR, admin, etc. This model has been adopted in the cyber security framework which the Government of India, the Reserve Bank of India has suggested under the Gopalakrishna Working Group Committee also. Now, that is only a standard statement. It is for the implementation of the organization. Now, the second such standard is defining the scope of implementation. See, normally in ISO, we often have, but at least in the ISMS standards, the implementation is taken for a particular unit or a particular division and so on. But legal compliance cannot be handled at unit level. It will always have to be at the enterprise level. So the scope of the implementation will have to clearly mention that the implementation will be at the enterprise level. There is no breaking up into divisions, branches, and so on. But it will be based on applicability of a specific data protection law. What I mean by that is that if the organization handles only Indian personal data, then the whole system will be geared towards the Indian data protection law. If it is having also the EU law, then we need to have a kind of segregation of personal data as GDPR data, PDPA data, maybe CCPA data, etc. And the scope of implementation will have to be defined based on this stakeholding data. The third standard is about measurability. Why we need to incorporate measurability is that in the Indian Data Protection Act, this is mandatory. We need to have a data trust score. So in other cases, it could be not mandatory, it could be perhaps voluntary or discretionary, but at least what India has proposed is to have mandatory measurability as part of the implementation. Of course, it is stated that the data auditor will provide this DTS. But if at the end of the year, data auditor is coming and giving me a data trust score, within the year, I as a company will have to, through my internal audit system, try to develop my own internal DTS, and later on see whether my internal DTS system matches with what the external auditor will give or not. So there has to be some kind of measurability within the implementation of the compliance, and later on data auditor will come and give what he may call as a data trust score. So that is the incorporation of the measurability factor in the implementation of compliance. So how to evaluate that and other things is the matter which will have to be explained in the implementation specification. Now, everywhere we always say incorporate privacy by design. Now, what we would like to highlight is privacy by design is not to commence only at the technical level of implementation. Privacy by design has to start right at the time when business promotion takes place and business is accepted by the business executives. Then it comes to the execution. So the privacy by design is not restricted to the IT department or the operations department. It extends to the CEO of the organization, the vice presidents of the organization, and so on. That is one important aspect of privacy by design. Then when we look at the personal data, it has to obviously look at the entire life cycle of the personal information, starting from the generation, birth of the personal data, then its various avatars within the organization as sensitive personal data, de-identified data, and whatever it is, then finally getting deleted or erased. So the privacy by design has to encompass the entire life cycle of the personal information and the entire life cycle of the whole business. I feel this slightly is different from the current approach. Now, the point 5, it says define the implementation charter. That is, we expect that the implementation is done by the data protection officer and his team, which is the operational responsibility of the DPO. However, the top management, which is represented in the Apex committee, we would like it to sign off a charter. That is, we do not expect that the DPO will have the kind of freedom to do whatever he wants. It is the top management which has to determine what is the risk appetite of the organization. Based on the risk appetite, they will have to say that they will go for a certain level of implementation which may absorb certain residual risk. The discretion for absorbing such residual risk does not lie with the DPO, it lies only with the top management. Therefore, the implementation charter has to come directly from the top management. Then, of course, there has to be a system of appropriate certification so that whatever evaluation of compliance is suggested in this standard, perhaps will have to be certified by an accredited and competent professional. It will have to be the responsibility of FDPPI to develop its own systems of how to develop accredited and competent professionals who would be understanding the logic behind PDPSI. Of course, understanding PDPSI will mean that a person has to also understand what is GDPR, what is ISO 27001, what is ISO 27701, what is perhaps BS 10012. So a person who has got the knowledge of all these international technical and techno-legal standards and also the specific requirements of PDPSI will have to be prepared. Just as we are now preparing the certification for Indian law and then global law, we will have to look at creating the people with expertise in PDPSI as well as expertise in 27701, etc., at least to a certain extent, so that the professionals which we are looking at as competent to do PDPSI audit will be one step ahead of the market. The second set of the 5 key domains which I mentioned is, one is the classification, and the standard will say information shall be classified across the enterprise to be amenable for application of subject data protection laws. I have elsewhere explained the implementation specification for this, where the classification of information, personal information, will have different tags. One tag will be the applicable law. It is like in goods we say country of origin. Here we are going to say country of applicable law. So that is an important tag. Along with that, the other tag will be whether it is an employee data, public data, whether it's a minor data and adult data and so on. So the classification is a foundation for implementation subsequently. So that is an important standard which we have to insist. Then implementation responsibility standard, what we mean here is that instead of loading one person called the DPO with all the responsibilities of the data protection law, about which we all know it is impractical to expect him to have complete control of all the information, we need to actually create a distributed responsibility level for implementation of PDPA or any other law. So we, in the implementation specification, have sometimes explained that what we would like to have is that particularly the unstructured personal information which gets scattered elsewhere, if you are not able to make the person who is currently holding that unstructured information or the person who becomes the first recipient of personal information flowing into the company, responsible for the PDPA, it will be very difficult to effectively implement the data protection law. So we would like to identify the gateway of information where it comes into the organization, where it goes out. So in-gate and out-gate will have to be recognized, and the persons manning those gates, they will be persons who will also be having implementation responsibility. We may call them as internal data controllers, as I have explained elsewhere. But the difference between current aspects, standards, and this is, while we still recognize there is a need for assigned responsibility, one person will be the DPO as far as external people are concerned, like the data principals and the DPA. Internally, the organization has to provide support to the DPO by making a certain other category of people as internal data controllers or internal data disposers. So that is the implementation responsibility. The technical control standards are similar to what we otherwise see in ISO 27701 or something, access control, encryption, pseudonymization. All these things come as technical control. It will be based on risk assessment. It will cover this CIA principle. Added to the CIA principle is the need for having authentication and non-repudiation of personal information as it is generated within the organization. The standard on policies essentially means that there will be appropriate policies and procedures on all aspects relevant to data protection law, which we are talking of, and it should cover the obligations, the protection of data subjects' rights, accountability requirements, and so on. The culture aspect means that the organization should effectively translate these policies, which are there on paper, to the culture of the organization, which of course will involve employee awareness training, but will not stop at employee awareness training. Every employee may have to provide an undertaking to the organization, like an ethical declaration, and appropriate tools will be used, incentives and disincentives will be provided. So the effort of an organization under this standard is not just to record how many people have undergone a 2-hour training or something like that and tick off. It is whether a compliance culture is there within the organization, and then only we know that data protection will be feasible. I'm not going into the details of the implementation specification here, but about 30 implementation specifications, a list has been identified, and it could be expanded in future. And as I told you, for different extensions like the PDPSI, GDPR, PDPSI, CCPA, these implementation specifications may be revised, and maybe a different set can be included. Okay. So basically this will be considered as a certain kind of baseline, and after this we will be having the variance management. So just for the sake of records, I have given these 30 sets. As you can see, it will have classification, risk assessment, implementation charter, then it will have the privacy policy, how to handle portable devices, cloud policy, then contract control, incident management, which will be different from the technical incident management, whistleblower. All these things will be part of the implementation control. And when the extensions come, we will be having separate implementation requirements for different extensions. So this is the basic introduction I wanted to give for the standard. More information is available anyway in pdpsi.in and navi.org. For today, I would now request Ramesh Venkatraman to explore how this concept of PDPSI compares with some well-known frameworks used for GDPR compliance, obviously 27701 and others. Okay, thank you. I will now invite Ramesh Venkatraman I think I will make him the co-host so that he can share his presentation.
Sure, sir.
So before we move on to Ramesh,
Yeah.
One question. If someone else has any question, they can ask too. In many of the organizations which you have seen, security as well as the privacy will be held by the same compliance person. So what is that in your view? Is it make a good combination of all the both?
Certainly the conflict is there. In fact, we all know that in one of the GDPR cases, even a legal compliance officer who was made the DPO, the supervisory authority felt that there is a conflict. So obviously between CISO and the DPO, there will be conflict. So in the governance model, when we have governance committee has to take this also into account.
It's a kind of a challenging to say that, okay, this issue or this problem belongs to privacy, this belongs to security, I don't want to get into this. This has been a kind of a challenge to handle this in the corporates. So
yeah, that is true. But see, there is a sort of a reconditioning required by the CISOs if they want to be the privacy officers, because CISO is trying to secure the data in the interest of the organization. But the DPO has to retrain his mind to take care of the data subjects, whether a harm is committed for the data subjects. So I think it requires a totally different attitudinal change for the person. And if both are to be handled by the same person, the CISO may give more priority for internal priorities, and he will definitely take a lesser priority for the data principal who may have a complaint. So that is why it is better if the two are segregated.
Yeah.
It will create one more employment opportunity at the top level. So that's
yeah.
Thank you, sir. I got it.
Okay.
So, anybody else any question?
Yeah, we'll take the question again later, I suppose.
Okay.
Ramesh.
Over to Ramesh.
Yeah. Sir, Navi sir, able to see my screen, sir?
Yes.
Great. Am I audible also?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Navi, for the crisp introduction. And for another 15 to 20 minutes, my interest would be, as Mr. Navi said, how this personal data protection standard, what he talked about, is fitting or sitting comfortably on the two important standards which the industry is now, as we all know, namely 27001 and this 27701. Yeah. Very quickly, I will move. So now I'm not going to talk about 27001 and 27701 in detail, but to get the context before I move on to how this PDPSI, what Mr. Navi talked about, the 30 implementation controls are mapped, let's get a few concepts about 27001. As we know, this is Information Security Management System. I'm talking about here the high-level structure of the standard. We used to conduct for 2-3 days, but I'm going to cover in 2 slides for all of us. We are all seniors, we understand. So it starts with class 1 to 10, the high-level structure, but 4 to 10 is the key, the meat. So now the class 4 talks about beautifully the context of the organization to understand, and it has got subclasses like 4.1, 2, 3, 4. Now what is interesting is the subclass 4.2 talks about understanding the needs and expectations of the interested parties. And there is a note beautifully talks about saying that the requirements of these interested parties may include legal and regulatory requirements. They are leaving it there. Yeah. So it is left to the organization, as Mr. Navi correctly said, that if I'm working in European Union somewhere, my customers, then probably my applicable legal requirement regulation could be my GDPR, or in California, it could be CCPA and so on. That's the understanding. Class 5 talks about leadership. The implementation charter, what he talked about it, probably establishing the DPO, data protection committee, internal auditors, and so on. So these policies, organizational responsibilities are the key over here. Class 6 of 27001 talks about planning here mainly the focus is being given on in terms of setting up the process in terms of risk management, yeah, addressing the risks and opportunities, what we call over there, and also setting up the objectives for information security. Okay. Support, the class 7 talks about typically the resources, what is required, the competencies, awareness, communication, and the documentation. Class 8 talks about operations beautifully. If you look at here under the operations, again, we are talking about information security risk assessment and information security risk treatment. So what we have done in the planning stage is the enterprise risk management overall based on the context of the organization. But here in the class 8, we more focused on information security. And class 9, of course, talks about 9.1, performance evaluation, monitoring, measurement, analysis, and 9.2, performing an internal audit at regular defined intervals. For 9.3, talking about focusing on management review. Class 10 talks about conformity, improvement, and whatever the output of my internal audit, I am trying to find out what is my status on non-conformity and moving towards continual improvement. This high-level structure is also talking about, along with this class 4 to 10, we have something called the Annexure A controls. What is this Annexure A? There are, as we know, 114 controls in the information security management system, starting with A.5 to A.18. I'm not going to go in detail, but just to understand, it governs the whole organization gambit beautifully, starting from the top management to different functions. Like, there is a misconception when you say ISMS, Information Security Management System. Even today, people have a kind of feeling, hey, it is addressing IT security. Be with me, IT security is only one component. We have other security aspects like physical security, environmental security, human resource security, compliance part, and so on. Now, under the compliance, beautifully, there is a control which it talks about here. It addresses privacy and protection of PII. So, to give you the kind of summary over here, ISMS addresses the regulations to a kind of very kind of level, not in a very focused way, as Mr. Navi put it. He beautifully said it is a technical compliance perspective. It is not focusing on the legal perspective. Fair enough. This was the kind of gap probably. And in the advent of, in the new scenario after the existence of GDPR, and where every organization, every country has started floating its own privacy regulations and etc., ISO realized the need for bringing out something called PIMS, stands for Privacy Information Management System. And this is the number, the series is 27701, 2019. That means in last August 2019, this got released. Already organizations started certifying it. Let's quickly understand what this is about. This particular standard gives you both the requirements as well as the guidance on how to implement these requirements. Very rarely, few ISO standards gives both the requirement and guidance. Otherwise, it used to be a requirement standard, which is normally auditable and certifiable standard. And how to implement it, there used to be a guidance standards. Now, this one particular standard addresses both. That's the key. Number two, this particular standard helps organizations to reconcile the privacy regulatory requirements as based on the location, region where they are working. This standard beautifully maps, this is the key, including GDPR. Because as we know in GDPR, as we speak, there is no particular certification exists. It has not come out. Article 43 of your GDPR talks about the certification component, but there is nothing, it has not yet come out. Now, this 27701 addressing this, what does that mean? If you are implementing 27701, probably we are trying to give a message to the organization, to the outside world, to your customers, stakeholders, that I am compliant to GDPR. That's the message. Now, 27701 has also been designed to be used by all the controllers and the processors as per your organization's need. And once when you map it, interestingly, this can be audited by the third party auditors, and hence you will be able to get a certificate saying that you are 27701 certified organization. But the key here is it's not a standalone auditable standard. It is you need to work in conjunction with the 27001. That's why I covered that first 2 slides. So the base is 27001 on which the 27701 is going to be implemented. Other 2 important bullets, as I said, it is beautifully sitting on 27001 and 27002, which includes a set of privacy specific requirements, controls, and control objectives. So what does that mean? I need to implement all the 114 controls of my 27001. Also, 27001 is going to prescribe some controls additionally if I wanted to adhere myself to 27701. Interesting. This particular standard also adapts the best practices from the 2900 series, what we call. It beautifully talks about establishing the privacy framework, privacy concepts, the privacy principles, how to do a privacy impact assessment, like a risk assessment, what we do in 27001. There is some kind of guidance in terms of how to protect the PII over cloud and etc. Now, this 27001, interestingly, if your organization is 27001 standard, wherein the whole standard, there is a keyword called information security, information security, information security. When you are talking about 27701, please change that to information security and privacy. That's all. That means additionally, we need to implement those controls. So I think very well said this in this standard. As we know in ISO, there are lots of data privacy standards. As I said, the 29 series talks about the setting up the privacy framework, setting up the privacy architecture framework, setting up the guidelines for privacy impact assessment, and so on. Last but not least is the 27701, what we are talking about, which is sitting on both your 27001 and 27002. All right. Very quickly, the privacy framework, I just put this slide to get the context in all our minds. The 29100 talks about there are 11 privacy principles. You look at any regulation, GDPR, CCPA, Dubai, your PDPA, everything, there will be a kind of reference to all these things. So if you are clear, we are clear. Now, I have also gone through the PDPSI framework at this point of time. Trust me, we have more or less in terms of that 30 specification controls, which I'll be talking about. Now, what is this PIMS? As I talked about in the ISO 27001, the PIMS has got the structure the same 1 to 8, the clauses here. Now, 1 to 3 is okay in reference and so on. What is interesting to you and me is starting from clause 5. Clause 5 talks about PIMS specific requirements related to 27001. As I said, this standard need to be implemented in conjunction with 27001. So, when you are looking at 27701, the clause 5 beautifully gives what is PIMS specific requirements related to 27001. Clause 6 beautifully addresses specific guidance related to the 27002, which is nothing but the guidance on implementation of Annexure A controls. A beautiful document, yeah. And clause 7 talks about additional control, additional guidance. Yeah, that means this is where I said we need to implement additional 31 controls if your organization is a controller organization, and there are going to be 18 additional controls if you are going to be a PII processor organization. Yeah, so this is very important. 5, 6, 7, 8. And this standard also comes out with a kind of annexures. There are around A to F, beautiful annexures. What is quite interesting, as I said, they have already given the mapping to the 29100, what I talked about, the 11 privacy principles. Yeah, and we can easily implement it in organization. Another important annexure D, what we need to be aware of, mapping to the GDPR. Article by article, they have mapped it. So that's the reason that whole industry, the whole world is running behind this standard, because as we know, almost as far as my knowledge goes, 99% of the organizations are already 27001, and now they wanted to give the assurance to their stakeholders that they are also implementing certain regulations, and hence they are going for this 27701. All right. Now coming back to PDPSI framework, Mr. Navi gave a crisp introduction. Yeah, here this is the Pentagon's Navi's model. What we talks about, all the literature available in the PDPSI.in site. It talks about starting with the classification. What he talked about it: responsibilities, technical controls, policies, and the culture. And this is where it is, coming in a very interesting way. Now our interest was whether this particular is getting mapped to what I talked about. Interestingly, I can be rest assured that it's already getting in. Certain basic principles of PDPSI, what really, for me, I really liked it. Now it gives the kind of responsibility with the top management involvement. As we know, which Nagendra beautifully raised that question, there is a big confusion, I would say, that whether the current CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, can play a role of data privacy officer and so on. If you ask me, as Mr. Navi said, it cannot be, in the sense that the focus of these two important roles are different. Number one, the skills required by the two roles are totally different. Yeah, when you're talking about privacy, we need to look at from the legal angle. When I'm talking about CISO, he's going to look at from the technical angle. So obviously one may not have both, and hence it's better to have a different kind of responsibility. We need to be very clear with the scope of implementation in terms of laws. That's the key. Yeah, as he said, in 27001 or 9001 or BCMS new high-level structure, we have a kind of clause 4.3 talks about scope of BCMS, scope of ISMS, scope of QMS, and so on, where we talk about the scope in terms of the business context, scope in terms of where it is applicable to a particular division, and so on. And so again, in quality perspective, in information security perspective, here the focus is in terms of the regulation and laws. That's the interesting part. Number three, as he talked about, measurability plays a vital role, and it's as part of your PDP bill at this stage. So we need to have a data trust code and privacy by design, Mr. Navi talked about, and implementation charter signed off by the organization at the highest level. Where he beautifully mentions it need to be at the board level. That is the commitment we are talking about, and incorporate obviously a kind of certification process at the regular intervals. Having said that, I will be just moving ahead with the kind of mapping what is needed. IC stands for implementation controls here. So I'm trying to do the mapping with respect to the 27701. But to go to 27701, I obviously need to have 27001 as the base, and hence what I talked about the first slide, class 4 to 10, high level structure is here, context of the organization, leadership, etc. We know very well. How this is getting mapped with respect to 27701 is the 4 is mapped to 5.2, 5 is mapped to 5.3, and so on. Coming to our PDPSI, what Mr. Navi talked about, the 30 implementation controls, I am trying to map it here. Disclosure to stakeholders and business associate comes as part of the context of the organization. Leadership, there are lots of kind of controls getting mapped to the leadership, starting with setting up the implementation charter, data protection committee, what he talked about, data protection officer, internal data controller, data auditor, and so on. All these things are getting mapped over here. Be with me at this stage. Some of the controls out of these 30 may also will get in more than one particular controls, as we know. Yeah, obviously, because HR and IT jointly does something, HR and finance jointly does something, HR or finance and procurement does something, etc. And hence some of these controls will also map to more than one. Planning, wherein 6 we talked about as a risk assessment, 5.4 of 27701 risk assessment, and here I'm trying to map over here. Support function, basically here I have HR in my mind when I talk about, as we know in any organization, awareness, competence development, background verification, BGV, motivating employees in terms of even discretionary policies, yeah, non-disclosure agreement, code of ethics, etc. This is where HR comes into picture. And again, in operations, the risk assessment is getting mapped. Moving ahead, clause 9 and 10, performance evaluation, internal audit management review, which is part of 27001, is mapped to 5.7 over here, and our controls are beautifully aligning. Internal audit to be done by the organization, annual audit done by the external, probably at this point we do not have in its, and contract control in terms of SLAs monitoring, performance monitoring with your subcontractors I'm talking about. So there need to be a performance evaluation system coming into reporting system, internal, external I'm talking about. As part of continual improvement, the kind of data which is coming out from the internal audit and annual audit plays a vital role, where we are really lagging, where we need to really implement it, a typical continual improvement process. I am moving ahead with respect to this 114 controls. This is what we call in 27002. It starts with A. A stands for Annexure. That's what here Annexure A controls. So it starts with A.5, A.6, A.7, A.8 till A.18. This A.5 to A.18 is beautifully mapped to our 27701. The clause 6 is starting with 6.2. Now, when I come here, I'm trying to map the kind of 30 controls of our PDPSI. Like you need to have a policy structure in terms of how we are talking about grievance addressal system, privacy policy, information security policy, cloud policy, legitimate interest policy, motivating employees, whistleblower policy, and so on. Yeah, as Mr. Navi said, at this point, this 30 might get extended when you are trying to map it to a particular regulation going forward, or when we are really doing a deeper exercise, we may feel that something need to be come out and etc. Obviously. Organization of information security, here we are talking about the privacy structure in place, as we in the class 4 also, 5 also we talked about data protection committee, data protection officer, internal auditor, and so on. Yeah, and human resource security, classification of personal data, classification of employees, portable devices, what we have here as part of 27001, bring your own devices policy, business associates, how do we handle, employee background, motivating employees, and whistleblower policy. This is what I said. Some of the controls may figure in more than one, whistleblower coming in almost all the places. And asset management, A.8, which talks about inventory of hardware assets, software assets, assigning the asset to a particular individual, revoking the asset at the time of exit or termination, so on, which was the focus in A.8 of your 27001. Here we are talking about beautifully the asset purchase and maintenance and portable devices as. And the next one is, here we are having access control as one of the domain. In 27001, here we do have access control, remote access, and etc. Access control, as we know, physical access, logical access, yeah, both the facilities and your technical IT comes into picture in terms of 27001. Same thing we are here. To move ahead, A.10 to A.15 in this slide, here we are talking about cryptography. As we all know, it talks about encryption, decryption. Physical and environmental security provided by our facilities, providing the perimeter security, providing the guards, taking care of the CCTVs, taking care of the fire drills, and so on, maintenance of physical equipments, right? Operation security and communication security here in 27001 is purely with respect to IT, your firewalls, your routers, your switches, your what you call intrusion detection systems, intrusion protection system, and so on. So this is a purely technical aspects. And the A.14 mainly concentrates on any kind of ICT systems which are getting developed in the organization. How are we handling the requirements related to the information security? And A.15 talks about supplier relationships. And I have mapped it to here, the 27701 clauses here. Let's see how our PDPSI controls are going to be mapped. Encryption, there is a control. You have a DRP and BCP beautifully sitting here. Portable devices, we already talked about as part of HR designing the policy, who can be allowed, what devices can be allowed based on the authorization, based on the role based, and so on. Here, these guys are implementing it. That's the idea. Cloud policy coming in part of the communication security, and system acquisition development. I'm talking about development of ICT systems. Here we are talking about the legitimate interest. How are we going to handle in the system perspective? disclosure to the stakeholders, business associates, risk assessment obviously comes in over here, any kind of, yeah. And supplier relationships, we have a kind of asset purchase and maintenance. Again, it is coming over here because these guys decide the vendors based on certain criteria. These guys decides the contract with the subcontractors based on, I'm talking about probably supplier chain management, what kind of systems your subcontractors have got, and so on. Contract control in terms of tracking their performance and their deliverables, etc. And A.16 of your 27001 and Action 27002 talks about information security incident management. When an incident happens in an organization, how this is going to be reported, who can be participating, who is really looking at the incident, who is really analyzing it, prioritizing it, solving it, is there any lessons learned back from the incident back to the organization is the key over here. And A.17 talks about security aspects from the business continuity management. And I don't have to talk about it much. The COVID-19, the pandemic situation throughout the globe is the best scenario. We can visualize it as the business continuity management. I think, in my opinion, the industry, the worldwide have realized the importance of business continuity management. A.18 obviously talks about compliance. This is where that I talked about protection of PII in the 27001. Now in the 27701, the clauses like 6.13, 14, 15 beautifully getting addressed. Let's see in our thing. As part of the 30 implementation controls, we have a control for incident management. We have a whistleblower. Obviously, something fishy happens, and if you had observed with me, the whistleblower comes in almost all the controls. Very important role, yeah. We may have a system, or it may be through a tool, and so on. DRP, BCP beautifully aligns with respect to our business continuity management of our information security. And compliance, obviously, we are going to check the adherence. We are going to check the readiness by the organization, yeah, in terms of the internal audit and annual audit. I think if you ask me in summary, the 30 controls of the PDPSI framework at this stage is really fitting in with the kind of 27001 and 27002. And as all of us know in the call, these two standards plays a vital role. So there is a kind of correlation exists. And I think we are in a kind of right situation to further take it forward. Any questions? Feel free to ask me. Mr. Navi, back to you. Anand, back to you. Thank you. Hope
Hi,
the
this is
discussion
Pratyush.
was okay. Yeah.
This is Pratyush. When the companies are already certified to ISO 27001,
yeah,
there is a ISO 27701 globally acceptable standard is there.
Yeah.
Why should company implement PDPSI?
Oh, beautiful. I think Mr. Navi in his opening address in his presentation, he addressed this, yeah. And his point of view is, let me restate. And Mr. Navi, if I'm going wrong, you can correct me.
Yeah.
As he said beautifully, 27001 came into the market. Then GDPR in a very big way came into the market where the whole world realized that importance of privacy regulations, etc. Then I said 27701 came in, which provides the mapping only to GDPR. Tomorrow in India, when the PDPA is going to be coming in a full-fledged way, where is the mapping? The whole world will be again scratching. Now, I think Mr. Navi's thought process, the FDPPI thought process is that proactively we are trying to bring out a kind of framework coming out of the standard, which is very well is going to get, aligned with the PDPI Act. If I can borrow the kind of, analogy, the GST implementation in India, as we all know, many of you would have done it. We had a tough time, right? None of us were very clear. The industries were not very clear. My chartered accountant, I have an experience where he said that, Ramesh, I cannot proceed with the GST implementation because we don't understand any head or tail. You please talk to some other auditor. He gave me 3 auditors' name. And we had to go to another auditor. So what I'm trying to say is that the industry was not ready in terms of the system, in terms of the understanding, in terms of the mapping. I think FDPPI is coming out with the standard, which is going to get mapped to the PDPA. Am I right, sir?
Yeah. 27701 will give you compliance with GDPR.
Yeah.
But in India, GDPR compliance is not what we are expecting. If you are handling Indian law, You
Yeah.
cannot have compliance of Indian data, I mean personal data management with reference to GDPR law. That is a
Yeah.
different law. This is a different jurisdiction, different commodity called Indian personal information. Therefore, we need a different thing. Maybe ISO will come up with 27801 for PDPA. I don't know. But for each of the countries, they will have to come up with. We are actually doing it ahead of them. We are having something for PDPA, and then perhaps our understanding of PDPA locally will be slightly better than somebody else trying to understand. Remember, GDPR and PDPA are not exact clones.
Yes.
Absolutely.
PDPA is different. You see, unless you accept that, you will have the difficulty.
Right.
Being GDPR compliant, you are not PDPA compliant. So therefore, similarly, 27701 will fall short of expectations for the PDPA. Of course, if there is an intelligent auditor, he will take whatever framework you have. You can try to again look at the relevant local law and adjust whatever is the requirement. I am not saying that auditors are not capable of doing it. Without a framework, they can do an audit. It is not that the certification alone should be there. Without certification, also an auditor can do some fantastic job of auditing and implementing.
Yeah.
So they will do. But what we are trying to do is for SMEs and others, we need to have a much clearer guideline. And I hope this will be providing that.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, who was that? Who had asked the question?
This is Pratyush.
Pratyush, yeah.
Hi Ramesh, Deepak here. I have a question. In
Yeah.
one of the slides you mentioned about the standard variation justification document.
Yeah.
Could you just put
That
some
is,
more?
what I'm saying is, the standard will come like your annexures to your ISO. We will come up with the implementation specifications as a add-on to the basic 11 standard domains. Okay. Now, having given that, an organization need not follow to the T all the 30 implementation control, which may have another subclasses also ABC or whatever is that. If they feel that I will adopt something like in the HIPAA, you have come across addressable specifications like that. Some of the things, if the organization has justification to make alterations, we will say let them have one document saying that I will adopt the implementation specifications 1 to 20. I will have alternatives to 20 to 25 and 26 to 30. I will adopt something like that. That is what I am calling as a variance.
Okay.
Document.
More like an SOA. More
There
like
you
an
are. There you are.
SOA.
Absolutely. Statement of applicability, wherein we say
Right.
that we justify for its inclusion and we
Absolutely.
also justify for its exclusion. And you can also have your own controls as we understand, right?
Yes.
Got it.
So Mr. Navi is talking about the same thing, standard variance document. Yeah.
Right.
Great.
Thank you.
Great, sir.
Sir, one question, Reena here. On the classification of employees, is it mapping to the IAM?
Ramesh, you have a comment on that?
Basically, I would say what I looked at it, the right now what we have answer is yes to a certain extent, and always we can go as we go deeper. I'm sure that we might have to really relook at it, but the answer is yes.
Yeah, Reena, if you send me what exactly is your concern separately, I can try to look
Yeah,
at it separately. Okay.
I will write
Yeah.
to you. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Sir, I want to ask one question.
Navi, I believe that IAM is identity and access management.
Access
is
management.
More of a technical nature. But here we are talking about classifying employees based on what kind of information probably they will be handling. So that way you can design the controls to protect. But so as Ramesh said, it may map to an extent where you want to provide the least privileges based on the role of that employee. So that way it will map to IAM, but not completely.
Yeah.
Probably to the asset management, it may map.
Yeah, sure.
IAM is one of the technical control, Ramesh. It will fall under one of the technical control, right?
Yeah. So IAM is a concept, identity access management.
Correct.
As he said, it could be role based, etc. We provide. Yeah.
Correct.
So madam's question is that the classification of employees what we have, is it mapped to that IAM?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got the question.
We are talking of the roles, certain roles,
Yeah.
like the internal data controller, internal
Correct.
data disposer, and everybody in between as the internal data processors. These are the three major classifications I have made. Obviously, the access will be different in the sense that if there is a pseudonymization, the data processors will have access only to pseudonymized data, not to the original data. So the internal data controllers and disposers, they will have access to the real data, whereas rest of the people will have access to the pseudonymized data. So something like that, role-based, you will have to have different access. Yeah, Kodanraman has got something.
Yeah. I'm a non-technical man. My question may be very crude, but what my understanding is the standards which we are going to develop have to address certain specifics which are more useful to Indian trade and commerce. We should concentrate that as the first priority. Secondly, unlike other data regimes, here we are talking about violation of a fundamental right, which is much more graver. It is to tell you, it can be immediately taken up by the high courts and Supreme Court for redressal by the public. So that kind of liberty is there. So we need to rejig. Some of the points about the Indian aspect says, no doubt we should have Indian standard as the basis, and we should provide other countries as add-on. If somebody requires it, they can go for it. And even in Indian sector, Indian business sector itself, we could think of some specific sector-wise for some time. For example, if I'm a chartered accountant, if I'm a manufacturer, if I'm in a medical field, like that, we try to specialize even that kind of division there, possible with some coding, so that the other things I need not. And secondly, you see the MSME which we were quoting, they are having very tough time ahead. Let me tell you. For them, they may be proprietors starting from a janitor early morning, opening it till he sells, convinces everything. He himself will be doing everything. So in such an event, it may be very difficult for him to give this large BMW. So we have to give him a small thing. So there also, I require your ideas to be driven down. If it is a proprietary based concern, or if it is handled by one individual, how he is going to manage, that also one thing. And last one, but not the very important one, is whenever we talk about IT law, we talk about only data and which are coming from the cyber. So this one only, cyber origin. But what about the manual data, which have equal credence here? There are a lot of industries who do manually a lot of things, and later on they add on to the system. They need to be protected even prior coming into the digital form. So how that should be? Even there, we need to spend more time. If somebody is taking data manually, how we have to prescribe them the manual standards. So don't think FDPPI standard will only concentrate on digital data. We need to go for manual aspects to be incorporated. This may not be incorporated by the so-called large standards. So this is where we can go for a dress which is more suitable, more appropriate for our business arena. That's my opinion.
Yeah, very good.
It's only common sense I'm trying to tell.
Excellent.
It's a very good point.
Excellent.
It will be taken into account. Actually, presently, any paper information meant to be processed in a computer is defined as data in India. And any paper document which has come out of processing of a computer is also considered data under Information Technology Act. So, in a way, PDPA has some extensions to paper documents, except of course manual processing by a small entity, some exemptions may be there. Rest of the people, it is there. Okay, I think we are actually getting into past 8 o'clock now. I still want at least Rakesh Goyal to say a few words before Patnam can give his final words. I am intruding on Patnam's time, but I think Rakesh should have some word. Yeah, Rakesh is still there?
Yes, I'm there very well.
Yeah. Some thoughts from you.
All right. Okay. This was a nice presentation by Navi and Ramesh both. and a lot of learning is there. And we have to have standards, because without standards, the implementation of any law or any this becomes useless. So standards will give direction to everyone that how to move. Yes, as Navi said, that a auditor can do without standards, but even if that standard is there, the auditor will take that standard as a base, and even the organization also knows that what we are going to get, how we are going to get, and it is aligned to certain specific type of requirements or not. It may be possible that auditor may go something overshoot or undershoot, but when the standard is there, at least organization knows, DPA knows, and auditor knows that what is supposed to be done and what is not supposed to be done. In that way, these standards become very important, and we have to develop it. And Mr. Kodanraman says that we must have something related to paper and something related to industry verticals. As a small SME, MSME, they may also require, although some may be not eligible, they may be exempted, but some may be requiring who are in the critical area. So for them also, small standards may be there. They will take time. They cannot be done overnight. They will take time. So we have to go for that. And as Navi has already developed something, we have to develop further, and we have to enhance those standards to suit the Indian PDPA requirements.
Thank you, Patnam.
Yeah, it was a very excellent and exciting session. And all the three speakers, Nagendra and Navi and Ramesh, they have done a good job. And Nagendra setting the opening note and giving the setting the course and pace that FDPPA is at a very logical turning point, that having 51 plus certified data production professionals and coming up with global certifications also in the global laws in next couple of months. So we are going to reach around 100 data privacy professionals. So it's a very logical thing that we get scaled up or ramped up, and skilled and competent become on the implementation part of it. Knowing just the act or the regulation will not suffice, and we should have the capability to deliver. The delivery capability will come with once we understand the implementation standard and the framework. And also it will help, as Rakesh ji told, that it will help the auditors. It will give the right framework for them, that what is for the auditing purpose. So next is that Navi sir, as that you have covered PDPSI in your module I, but it was a very refreshing session for all of us, that you ran through us the PDPSI, and that this standard is envisaged and evolved by you over the years. We understand that, and then you have kept in mind the ISO part of it, and how the way we need to make this standard, which is very comprehensive for a regulation, where in ISMS, the 27001, which is information security, more of technical control. When it comes to PDPSI, which is more techno-legal, and from the legal perspective, how that it encompasses all the the standards as well. So it's well envisaged. I think the FDPPA forum, the members, I humble request from my side that we should take it forward. And as there was a very open discussion today here, and valuable inputs from Kodandaraman sir, that we should look at the PDPSI from more from the trade and commerce perspective, from the Indian landscape, and also from MSME landscape. Yes, this is where the journey we are taking. Today was the first session. We are taking a journey, and while we move forward, that we make it more compliant. Also, one input has come from that, the compliance with the IAM, the mapping with the IAM. So this is where we start looking at how the PDPSI can become, made customized, rather all the brought in the technical controls like IAM and all, which will be brought in, and the best mapping can be done. So we expect the input from all the members. So please, go through PDPSI.in site, which Navi sir and and we can post our thoughts and comments there. So that will give there is an action group has been formed by Navi sir. So for this, and we will the interested parties also can join this action group, where we take this journey and make this PDPS as a good standard for in not only India, as Kodandaraman sir and Rakesh said, that this should be the offset also, that for other country laws also we should be made to compliant, means is a standard implementation standard, PIMS. So coming to Rameshji's Rameshji sir, that it was an excellent presentation from you, and this was the first time I have seen that any standard like ISO 27001, you covered it section 4 to 10 within 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes. It was a best navigation I have seen. Both you covered 27001 and 27001 within 10 minutes. It was humongous, and the mapping was a very huge exercise, I can understand. And you have understood all both the standards, and then the 29,000 generation also you gave a snapshot of it, and it was a well covered and well mapped, and we got really became knowledgeable, and we got a perspective that how strong is the PDPSI, that how well it can be mapped. So to conclude, yes, we are starting the journey from today's session. So we'll need to take this journey in a stronger way, with a with a consistency, with a confidence, and with a focus, with a goal that yes, PDPSI is going to become one of the standard to recon with all the data protection professionals. Over to you, Navi sir.
So, anybody else want to say anything before we wind up? I have got no time constraint, but others may have time constraints. Yeah.
Navi sir.
Yeah.
I have information to say. There is a reliable information from ISO circles that ISO 27001 plus 27002, there going to be a change in by end of this year or early next year. The change anticipated is the 27001 clauses will be the same, but unnecessary controls will be going to be changed. The controls currently we have 114 controls. Those controls to be redefined and realigned to 97 controls, covering 14 major areas.
Absolutely.
In the 14 major areas, the very important connected to our privacy is data masking going to be one of the key area, data leakage prevention, and information deletion. There are many aspects which are going to come into this control framework, which are also going to focus on the personal data prevention part. So whatever we are going to develop as a framework for our PDPI, what we thought, we need to consider that part of change coming to in the international standard.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think a very valid input. Probably I will also forward that link wherein what Adapul sir talked about, the changes in our FDPPI members. Yeah, it's beautifully addressing all that. I will forward it. Thanks, sir. Good input actually. Yeah, I'm aware of. Yeah.
Anybody else? I wish we had more time. Actually, this was not sufficient, but I think we have started off, and maybe we will have some other day some more discussions if required. Anybody can come forward for more discussions on this.
Navi sir.
Yeah.
In the Dubai area, I saw one more privacy law, which is a national law, apart from DFIC, what we discussed last week.
Yeah.
Really, we need to consider that particular law which is going to come up in Dubai or the UAE rather than DFIC. The DFIC is the only control for that particular zone, whereas the law which has been the Khalil Times reported is a country law, and that is going to be focused on personal law.
Now we have to also worry about companies having offices inside DAFC and outside DAFC.
Yes, sir.
How will they manage both these things?
Yeah.
Also we have to see. Okay.
Yeah, that is going to be a very complex situation.
Inside DFC, they have to follow two laws.
Administrative office may be in one place, some other office may be in another place. What, Rakesh?
In our global module, we need to look at this aspect.
Okay, okay. I hope in India, state governments do not get any idea.
Navi sir,
Uh,
in Germany, apart from GDPR, which is a European law, every country has its own personal law, and further every state has its own personal law.
Like US.
That is more, I don't know US part, Germany I studied it.
Yeah.
It's more complex to companies in the Germany. I don't know how they are living with that regulation.
But in India, it's not a concurrent entry in the constitution. If it becomes concurrent, then every state will have its own law, because then they will earn money out of corruption.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a concurrent, sir. I think it is going to be a national law only.
It is a law of parliament. State government may not be interested at all.
Okay.
Let's see.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Mr. Navi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one question. And Ramesh, it is a good presentation. Now, with this mapping, what I understand that the PDPI, whatever the data protection bill, everything is covered with this ISO 27001 and 27702. Right now, India has not, they have not given a framework, or it is not finalized. Is there any chance they are going to tell this 27001 and 27702? If one organization has this one, they are comply with
No.
PDP.
Let's first PDPA get enacted. After that, that will come.
No,
Okay.
sir. Rakesh, sir.
Because already they have followed so many ISO standards.
Yeah.
So because of that, is there any chances?
Harish, so far there was no choice for the government. Now we are providing a choice to the government with the PDPSA. Now let us see how they will react, whether they will go for international standards because that is more profitable for the officials or something like that, or will they go for more the relevance of Indian law? We have to wait and see. I have had a detailed discussion on this in Information Technology Act. If you want, you do research. I had a big issue with the ministry when they said that under 43A, ITA 2000, following compliance to ISO 27001 is deemed compliance, they said. I said that it is Parliament cannot give such an endorsement to a standard. And subsequently, of course, ministry actually came up with some clarification. But ISO continues to claim that Indian government is mandating ISO 27001. That is not a correct perception. So even now with PDPA 27001 and 2 cannot be automatic choices. It will be one of the frameworks. Obviously, that's a good framework, but it will be one of the frameworks which can be adopted. And if we are presenting an alternative, now the choice is before the market, whether we should go for 27001 and 2 and 29100, etc., etc., or they should go for a India-specific model. Now, of course, FDPPI is not as big as ISO, I understand that. But still, a choice is a choice. Because even if you have gone through ISO 27001, when an incident happens, you have to still justify whether your compliance was okay or not. Just because you hold a certificate, you will not get legal clearance of the liabilities. So ultimately, the management will have to take a decision what will save them from liability, whether it is having a certificate of 27001 and 2 or something which may be local, not global, but still has got more relevance. We have to wait. That is the challenge which FDPPI is taking on today. And I hope all of you will support that this thing so that we will try to develop a sort of self-reliance for audit frameworks also in India. Okay.
Sir, very quickly.
Add to that, there are companies who are telling that we are following a framework of ISACA privacy or NIST frameworks.
Agreed. Let there be multiple frameworks. That's what I'm telling you. That ultimately the management will adopt one of the frameworks, and when some situation arises, then the law enforcement, which may be a court or it may be CERT-in or whoever of DPA, will determine whether there was compliance or not. Whether you have followed that framework or this framework is only the very, you can just send a letter that we were compliant with so and so, but beyond that, DPA is going to make its own audit after the incident and find out whether you were compliant or not. So It could be. In fact, COBIT itself was, in my opinion, a better standard than the pure ISO. Like that, ISACA may come up with their own standard.
Yeah, I have one thing to add. See, when we are able, if we are able to have a better dress suitable for Indian conditions, our dress will be more cherished. We cannot go for a general dress to be worn everywhere by everybody in India. They are unsuitable for Indian situations. I told you, India is a multitude of variants are there. So there we should concentrate on specializing for Indian industry. And secondly, I have one last suggestion also. We should go beyond the technological framework and we should see that we comply with the legal aspects also. Indian legal system also becomes a kind of a thing. Attach it to add on. If that company gets into a legal complication, how to redress, even those redressal mechanisms as per the Indian courts could be incorporated.
Okay,
And
PDPSA puts the legal first and then
Absolutely.
these things to follow to comply with the legal, not the other way around.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Meenal has
Last thing is,
yeah.
And last thing is, we should not only think of significant data fiduciaries, we should think of people who doesn't have, and even if they don't have DPO, it may be a one-man show, use DPO.
Yes.
That we should concentrate.
I would like to have this as an open standard. That's why. Okay, Meenal. Yeah.
Navi sir, today's session was a comparative session between ISO and the PDPSI. But I think it will be very useful to now only focus on PDPSI and maybe discuss each of the points in detail. Then probably all of us can contribute positively and constructively to what, how we can develop and nuances that will need to be built in. Probably that's where we can, help.
We will do that. That's why the action group will start working on that. You can always contribute your thoughts also. And we would like this. Today was only a sort of an introduction so that everybody understands that there is something like this which we have to look at. Okay.
Sure, sir.
Yeah.
Sure, sir.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.